we've got Dr. Masia. She is the Chief People Officer at McDonald's South Africa, a role that she's recently taken up, but she's got very many years of experience as a people leader and as a leading thought leader when it comes to anything to do with human resources. So I'm going to allow her just to come in a very short space of time, but just to give you some thoughts around this particular topic and why I thought it's topical for me was that learning has always been something I'm passionate about. And when we were given a chance to pick topics that we would like to talk to as directors, that's the one that I picked. It, as I say, it resonates with me. I myself have been a lifelong learner. My journey has not been a very linear one. It has taken scenic routes. It has taken some pivots here and there, but all exciting. They add to my experience. And with me, I'm going to have to hand over to Mamello just to give us a sense about, yeah, anything to do with futures. She's going to be responding to some of the questions that were set. As I said, it's not going to be as smooth, but we will try and make it best we can. So without further ado, I'm going to give her an opportunity just to say a few words.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dade Kabi Kolobe, for the invitation. And sincere apologies for this technical glitch, because I seem to be perfectly online. I can see, the session and the live session, but unfortunately, I can't hear any of you. Having said so, I'll proceed. So my name is Mamello Masia. I am an HR professional. I'm here as an HR professional, even though I work for McDonald's South Africa, and I'm the Chief People Officer there. One of the elements that make me and my passion is development, and development particularly of young people, and supporting those that do not have access to have access in areas that ordinarily they wouldn't. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and I truly am passionate about the people agenda, particularly development of young talent. Thank you. And I'll then proceed on to the 5 elements that I had discussed with Ndate Kabi Kolobe. The first being the issue around 2030 and how the average professional will change their core skills every 4 to 5 years, and what do I see as a barrier to making this normal, and how do we then remove that barrier? Contrary to what we would ordinarily believe, I think with the research that one has done in the past few years, it seems like our gap is our education system. Our education system, all the way from early development throughout to higher education. We seem to be stuck in a particular era, and we as corporates, as government, as academia, are not prepared to move from that world or that era that we come from. Irrespective of all the changes that are thrown at us, we are not adjusting. I mean, I recall back in the days when I was in Durban, that was between 2007 and 2013. At some point in that period, I engaged with the IPM DUT, and we started a committee where private sector and academia were coming together to consider changing the curriculum. Honestly, I don't remember how far that went. I thought it was a very good approach that DUT took with the private sector. And I thought as far back as about 2010, 2013, that was the right move to prepare academia to align with where the world is at and where private sectors are at, to prepare young people to be employable, not just employable, but employable for the era that we find ourselves in. So unfortunately, I think our barrier is our education system. And I don't blame government alone. We all have a responsibility to play. Academia, private, public sector, all have a role to play in this particular barrier that I'm referring to. Anyway, the next question says, as a follow-up to question 1, should we still have tertiary institutions in their current form? And will the current degrees and diplomas still matter? I believe there has to be an assessment of where we are globally and how that affects us in South Africa. These shifts that we have experienced, what are they? How are they affecting how we educate and what we should educate for? Careers, I mean, as far back as, I don't know, when we were talking about NDP and we were talking about new careers that are coming and they were listed. But the last time I checked, it was just a list. I'm not aware of us shifting curriculum to adjust to the new careers that we have identified. So that's one. Secondly, we are hit with high technological advancements, digitization. We are hit with AI. And I'll respond to the last question because it has a relationship with the second question. That last question that was asked was, what human skills do we believe will be the ultimate AI-proof differentiator, and how can we deepen the skill and teach it at scale? I believe it's important that the education system, not just at tertiary institutions, but all the way down to early development, should adjust to this reality, and programs should be adjusted to this reality. In fact, I believe there are some degrees that are really redundant that we should do away with, but there are some degrees that can be adjusted and can be improved to accommodate today and the now and where we are heading from a technological point of view. And some of those elements that we need to really consider as institutions and educate. And by the way, I find that those that can help with these programs are really making money out of it at a very private level and not necessarily finding academia who are so great at research accommodating these elements, which I'm going to talk about. So for instance, complex problem solving in unstructured environments. This is a terrain that we post-COVID, we should know that we get to find ourselves in uncharted territory, and we have to know how best to navigate such environments. And there's so much more that's yet to hit us. We're being hit by AI right now. Some of us are not even ready for policy making or how to behave. Universities are confused on how to manage students. So there has to be some form of programs that help us prepare for complex problem solving in unstructured environments or uncharted environments or uncertainty or the VUCA, creativity and innovation. Even though AI is here, we will always require creativity and innovation, but we have to build it in to our education system. How do we help our kids from an early childhood education all the way to tertiary to be creative and innovative? I mean, when you look at the Japanese at a very early stage, they start their kids with creativity and innovation. Those paper activities where they build swans, and there's so much more that those kids are exposed to. Our education system can learn from some of these countries. Emotional intelligence. I mean, at the stage I'm at in my career, the age I'm at, I still believe I can do more in studying and understanding emotional intelligence. In fact, I'm currently reading a book on emotional intelligence as we speak. I wish it was close to me. I'll show it to you. I think this is something that has to be taught from early all the way to tertiary. And there are other coefficients that we can teach, like social intelligence and many others, which I won't get into right now. Strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is not for executives. It's an element that should be taught quite early. In fact, added to that is also execution. The ability to execute is a skill that has to be learned and understood from very early in life. And we have to find a way of weaving this into our curriculum. Guys, I cannot say more than this. Ethical judgment and moral thinking. AI will not wipe that as well, but we also have to build it into our curriculum. Adaptability and learning and novel contexts is something that AI will not wipe from us, but we also have to find a way of how do we teach people to be adaptable. Not long ago, actually today, I was on a call with a CEO of another business who is struggling with conflict within that business. And one of the elements that I was, socializing them on is how adaptability is key, how it's important to shift from where you are to where someone is in order to ensure that a relationship is built. But adaptability can be on a number of levels, from micro to macro levels. Relationship building and influence. AI will not away from us, but we have to find a way of teaching each other how to relate better, how to build better relationships, how to influence, how to negotiate, how to persuade, how to inspire and motivate others. No level of AI will, maybe it can guide, but you as a human being still has to get through that. So these skills really deepen trust, credibility, and shared values. So nothing like AI will take away some of these elements. There's a lot more that one can get into beyond the 7 skills that I spoke about, which I think can also be incorporated into our tertiary institutions. Moving on to question 3. If every company had to publish a future jobs roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years, what must it contain? I think here one cannot be explicit because we have gazillion careers out there. And as many as they are, there are requirements for each of those careers. And those requirements are affected by some of the shifts we've experienced in digital transformation and the very same AI we're talking about. So I can't be specific on what the roadmap should look like. But what I can say is we have to all be alive at what the shifts look like and how they are influencing careers and how that influence affects how young people should prepare for the very same careers. And I think we have a responsibility over and above academia changing curriculum, over and above public sector and private sector partnering with academia. We have a responsibility as companies to go to schools, to talk to young people about possibilities that are out there. I know one business I worked for, we used to have a program from grade 8 all the way to grade 12, where we would help talk about careers in grade 8. In grade 9, we would help young people choose subjects by teaching them about what's out there, running assessments and helping them to understand what careers could be great for them. In grade 10, we would come back and have a program where you take a child to work. And in grade 11, would continue to do the same. Grade 12, give them exposure to bursaries for university. In university, give them an opportunity to come for vacation work, and then that would become our pipeline. And in doing so, you prepare those young people to be able to be employable in your environment. And I know we have learnerships now. As much as you're catching it later in a learnership, you're still influencing employability and adjustment of where a young person that has never been exposed to corporate to now eventually be exposed. But we can start far earlier from early development, as I stated. The next question is on how is the gig economy?
It looks like we have lost our guest. Let's see if she is rejoined. Okay, whilst she's getting reconnected, it's quite interesting the comment that Mamello made around the education system and the fact that it is largely the barrier to getting numbers as far as employment is concerned. And I wanted to post a follow-up question to her just to say, if you consider the past, call it maybe 30 years ago, matric used to be the biggest hurdle for people to get into a job, or even earlier. But now that you've had this wave of people going to tertiary institutions, learning all sorts of things, engineering, vocational, and all other academic work, the issue is still we don't have the right numbers as far as the right skills to move the economy or to grow the economy. Now, to somebody who's frustrated, who's at home as a young graduate, it feels, one would feel hard done about this thing. And my question to Mamello is more around who then has to take that first bold move to make sure that whoever we train ultimately into tertiary education, we only produce the required skills for the economy. I hope she will see the question in the chat.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can now hear you. I don't know at what point you started talking because I was going on and on, not knowing when to stop.
No, we lost you. We lost you a bit. You were frozen. I'm glad that you are back online and we can converse. So yeah.
At what point did you lose me?
You were still addressing the last question around the gig economy. You were just about to get started on it.
Okay. Do you want me to go on it or do you want me to respond to the question you were talking about?
We can park the gig economy and maybe just address this because it's a follow-up question to something very interesting that you raise around education being a barrier. And I'm thinking,
yes,
it seems to have been a barrier for quite a long time, and it just changes. The shape of the barrier just changes. And somebody who's probably spent 4 years or even 6 years doing even up to a master's degree who's unemployed, it can be very demotivating then to be told, yes, we see you are educated, but it's not the right skill the economy needs. So the question is, who must really take that first bold step as far as the transformation of education? Who should we be gunning for?
I was not. Yes, we have a responsibility, as I said, both government and private sector, as well as academia. And I'll give an example of something that we have done at McDonald's recently, and many other companies are doing, but I'll reflect on this because just the other day, our learners were graduating. We had over 400 learners, or rather over 600 learners that were graduating, and over 400 of those we absorbed into our system. And we were quite intentional about it because we acknowledge the high percentage, over 40% of youth in this country are unemployed. And unemployed because they're not employable because of their qualification. They're not employable because there are no jobs. They're not employable because there's lack of support. So what we decided is, let's bring these young people in. expose them to a qualification, at least in our environment. So SETAs out there have created an opportunity to equip young people with qualifications that are related to respective industries. So we are in the food industry. Do universities teach you everything about the food industry? Maybe not, but SETAs are offering this. So through SETAs or even TVTs sometimes offer you these programs that we then as corporates should have a responsibility to go harness, or rather to activate those programs and then draw thousands and thousands of young people into these programs. So we do learnerships where you have 30% of theory of this program that ordinarily a young person would have never been exposed to. That is directly related to our industry and our company. And we know when you get out of it, you'll go straight to the kitchen or wherever you have to go and do what you have to do. And then we'll give you 70% of your time to spend on the job, learning how to do what's expected of you on the job. So what that does, it honestly immediately bridges that gap you're talking about. I'm talking about QSR in the restaurant environment. Exactly the same solution was applied to my previous employer, where we were in the property industry. We took young people, we exposed them to a program in the property industry, 30% classroom, 70% on the job. So all companies can do this. And the partnership between SETAs and organization, I mean, we have spent so much with the Cathsseta to make sure that we pay stipends, and we even top up as a business to say we want to help these young people. The intake was from 1.4. 1,400 young people were taken in. Yes, for various reasons, they'll drop off, and we landed up with over 600. Some will go out and become entrepreneurs. We're even thinking of bringing an entrepreneurship program because we acknowledge that not all these young people want to come to it. So now we're introducing an entrepreneurship program to say, young people who want to follow entrepreneurship, here's a program for you so that we prepare you for that world. So I think most organizations can do this. In fact, they are doing it at different scales. Someone can take 10 people. Someone can take 100, another 10,000 or 1.4 like we're doing. Microsoft can do the same and probably is doing exactly the same, but for programs that are aligned to that. So that's how companies are bridging it. But where it worries me is that academia is not shifting closer to this solution. It's shifting away from this solution. So I don't know how we can find a place for a SETA, for a TVT, and for a university, because now we even have community institutions where a young person that has no chance in life, someone sees them and says, here is an opportunity for you to learn. And now we have to partner with those as well to say, let's give hope back to young people. So there's a solution that we just have to partner effectively.
Okay. Let me allow you to go back to the gig economy question, and maybe we can pick on another topic that we can discuss just to further the debate.
Yeah, my passion for this is crazy.
Discussion, not a debate. I'll call it a discussion, not a debate.
So the gig economy, it's here, it's with us. People hustle, and it should be okay. So at some point in my career, when I worked for Evonik South Africa, I was a head of HR and compliance officer. One of my responsibilities was to talk about conflict of interest. And one of the topics in conflict of interest was secondary employment. We would have a conversation with employees that you are not allowed to go and DJ. After DJing, it's conflict of interest because when you come back to work, you are tired, you can't focus fully, and therefore you can't be, fully effective. But we pay you the 8 hours, but you're not fully there for the 8 hours because you're sleepy, you're tired for working overnight. That's one element. So we were saying it's conflict of interest. And then we would make an example because we're an international company and say, but in the Netherlands, there are farmers in Holland. In Holland, there are farmers. And the government has appreciated that farming is a lifestyle and creates livelihood for people, even from a financial perspective. Government has come with legislation that says it's okay for you to work and be a farmer that earns money. So government has legislation that supports the Dutch to do this. So in one company, there's a country where it's okay to do to hustle, but in another country, because legislation doesn't support it, it may not be seen as okay. So let's come to me doing many jobs over and above what I'm employed for, or just me doing many jobs without being employed fully by one company. Legislation is also not entirely ready for this. We do talk about independent contractors. But do you know what some companies are going to say when I'm an independent contractor in the QSR space, for instance, or a competing space? I shouldn't name any company. That now, how do we appreciate the fact that you can keep our IP if you work for company X that competes with company Y? How do we know that you will effectively keep our IP? So that's another challenge that exists, and how we have to find methods of managing it. And probably it's trust. Some people say NDAs don't quite work, but some of us believe they work. So I think there are a number of elements. There's legislation, there's social elements that have to really shift, that people can be, can work in different spaces and be trusted to deliver, and also to respect people's IP or confidential information. So I think we just have to find methods from a legislative point of view. And if maybe I have not appreciated some of the changes or case law, I apologize. But as far as I am and as far as I know, I'm not exposed to where legislation has taken us to accommodate gig economies. But it's here, and we see some people succeeding in it and some people not necessarily succeeding in it. And you still hear businesses, and I'm one of them, and I'm guilty of it, where we say we need to manage culture. We need to manage how things are done here. And if we have everyone coming all over, it's going to destabilize us and affect our culture, So there's so many elements to it that we have to be wary of and find methods of working around as business and as government from a legislative point of view, to find guardrails that will govern how we do it, instead of saying it can't be done, or the risks. So if we know the risks, how do we raise the guardrails, be clear about what the governance should be, and facilitate the gig economy from being successful, because it adds value to the very same economy that we are trying to revive.
No, I absolutely appreciate that angle that you looked at it. And now it makes me ask the question then to say, if other economies out there, probably bigger economies, can accommodate these things. I mean, we've been watching movies based on American life. We know that Americans, it's quite common for people to keep 2 or 3 jobs. The same is happening in Europe. And it's largely been driven by the fact that salaries have not been growing proportionately to inflation. So people have to find ways to earn a bit more just to be okay. So the question then again becomes, you've identified education as a barrier. Is this to mean that our legislative framework is also a bit of a barrier when it comes to some of these things? How can we encourage young people to actually go out into the gig economy, as opposed to expectation of holding a single well-paying job? Because for me, it's almost clear that that world that existed 30 years ago, where you go to university, you graduate, and you are likely to pick and choose a job, it's no longer there.
Maybe we can't say it's no longer there, that it's still there. There are hundreds of thousands of young people that still get employed. And there are some that are not getting employed and that are not employable. So we can't rule out what we call the norm in following a career. That is still there. It still has a place. But I think we have to establish how best to support holding more than one job, and how to socialize ourselves, that it's okay to do so. So I don't think it's something we can rule out where we are at. We have a responsibility to find methods to adjust to elements that are new, adding on to where we're at. Not that it's all gone. It's not all gone. I'm employed, and there are some young people who are still we have graduate programs with young people that are getting employed as we speak, and hundreds of thousands of them, and probably even in the millions. But how do we then adjust to the reality that not all of them are being accommodated, and that the gig economy is a reality? Yes, and
that. I'm going to ask two more questions, if you do allow me, before we do let you go. I'm mindful we had said we'll go up to 7.
Not a problem at all.
The one question being, let's try and bring it back to the actual theme. Our main audience that we're trying to address is the youth. Now, the themes we were meant to be talking about are around lifelong learning, reskilling, and what does the future look like as far as the careers of the future. So how do we equip our youth and encourage them that maybe I started off and I'm going to pick a degree just randomly. Maybe I did a degree in public administration, but we know government no longer wants to employ because they have a huge wage bill. How can I be encouraged to then pivot and find something that is either related or even unrelated, where I can now reposition myself to better my career prospects? Because it's also something that we need to navigate around. There are people who prepared themselves for a particular career, and the prospects for such a career are now dwindling. So how do we still keep them engaged? They've demonstrated that they have the ability to assimilate education and they can learn. So clearly they have something. It's something worth mentioning. So how can what can we do to encourage all of those?
Maybe let me deal with it in maybe 2 ways. From an individual perspective, as me as a young person, what do I do for myself? And what can organizations do? We have the luxury of free tools that we can go out there and utilize to help us understand where the world is moving towards. We have a responsibility to make time to learn, to equip ourselves with what has happened between when I got my public administration and sociology degree in 2001 and today in 2025. I have a responsibility to continue to equip myself in the absence of anyone's intervention. And I think we have to start there and take that responsibility as young people. And in fact, without necessarily downplaying the psychological impact it has on one when they're struggling to find employment, because there's also that psychological impact where people end up depressed, semi-depressed, if there's anything like that, but not in the right state of mind to apply yourself, to think of solutions that can help you adjust. But I say it's critical that you go where there's free Wi-Fi. I mean, if we're talking about a person in Lesotho, for instance, the other day I saw a video of a young person from Hapatamai in Maseru, who wakes up at 6 o'clock and goes to the park in front of LHDA, sits there with a laptop and applies for jobs because there's free Wi-Fi there. This guy could also sit there and learn a whole lot of skills that are free on the internet to equip themselves to get better at what or who they are beyond the public administration and sociology program. I mean, there's data science, there's data analytics, there is a whole lot of new careers out there that have emerged that we should find time to learn, irrespective of what your background is. So that's the personal responsibility. I'm not a financial person, but there's times I have to make sure that I get to understand finances and find ways personally to do that without expecting someone else to pay that for me. And sometimes it's free. From a business perspective, I think I've kind of already touched on it, that we can't have all these young people unemployed, unemployable, and not having the right skills if we have the coffers to actually support them to be reskilled and upskilled and for them to learn and unlearn things. And if we really care and we are the responsible corporate citizens that we deem to be, we should be collecting young people from the streets and upskilling them to adjust to what we require as businesses, you know? And that goes for various types of businesses. We all have that responsibility beyond profitability. And I know we need money in order to pay salaries, but a stipend goes a long way for a person that does not have a job at all, you know? So I think those are some of the elements that we can consider. There's probably so much more that can be done, but that's what comes to mind at this juncture.
Okay. No,
and by the way, Kabi Kolobe,
yeah,
there's one thing. We have mentors out there. We have people that we can network with. And it's very important for people to know that networking and connecting with people that know more than you do or that do something different from yours is also another way of learning and being taught different and being exposed to what you would have ordinarily not been exposed to. And mentorship does not have to be in a formal program. I can come to you and say, hey, I need to understand an income statement. Hey, I'm struggling that. Can you please help me? That in itself gives me a skill that I would have ordinarily not gained had I not approached you. So that's another element that we can teach young people to be brave enough to consider.
Yeah. I wish we had more time. I really love some of your insights and some of your perspectives, quite informative. Maybe just to wrap up, you can just give us your closing thoughts. You've spoken a lot about very many interesting things. Right now, the issue of mentoring, it takes me to be engaged to want to go further and approach you and say, I've got HR related problems, please help me out. But if I have to wear the hat of an unemployed youth, that's the last thing on his mind. So how can we still keep them engaged in some shape or form? I mean, just so that we don't lose them. If you can maybe touch on that as you give your closing remarks, and then we can wrap up.
I'm gonna say something that will probably sound very unfair, but sometimes controversy helps to shake up things and think differently. I remember back in the days, we had programs around sexual health. I think there was a program in Maseru, in LPPA. I don't quite remember the name, but it was about sexuality and teaching young people. That program used to bring us together. Hey, you would leave whatever it is that you were doing, and you'll come to LPPA, and we would do and learn so much about issues related to sexuality. And it was the topic at the time because of HIV/AIDS. In South Africa, there were programs that were very successful around youth and sexuality that really helped bring young people together and bring them away from the streets. There is a place for those programs. And I think we owe it to ourselves as governments, and knowing and seeing the scourge we have, to support young people. But we also have a challenge, a societal, deep societal challenge of materialism, of wanting to achieve and acquire so quickly, irrespective of what you afford or not afford. And then that denies people from going deep and broad into learning and growing themselves in a manner that gets them rooted in respective areas of their professions, or pivoting. We don't quite make that time. So I think it's going to be important for us to really unlearn and appreciate that we have to invest in ourselves, and invest in ourselves effectively, and less about that which is material. That all these material things will follow when the right time comes. But find time and make time for investment in yourself. No one will take that away from you. And all the goodness will then follow later in time. So as an individual, you can do that, but as business and as governments, we have to put together programs that support these young people who ordinarily sometimes don't know best. I mean, I've had young people who are in a learnership that pays them and tops up, but they still think, oh, I can't take this manager. I'm leaving and I'm going to stay home unemployed. There lies in one of the issues I spoke about earlier around relationship building, maybe even resilience, you know. So if these things are taught from early in life, when young people are in primary school, high school, university, it might just prepare them for the world we're in today. So there's a lot of work that can be done, but we need commitment from all of us. And I'm not sure whether we really have that, because you find people want to pull in different directions. I want to own it, and if I own it, I'll be the. And then I saw there are 1,000 heroes, and we can't pull together and create an effective program that shifts this, our respective nations.
No, I am super glad that we ultimately got the connection right and we could have the conversation. I hope it has been very rich for the audience. I thoroughly enjoyed the insights that you've shared, and I think just on behalf of Career Indaba, let me thank you for making the time. I know you are even away, you are on a work trip, but you still made the time. Next year, I'm going to make sure we commit you for our Career Expo. Be sure to look out for the correspondence on that. Thank you so much.
Any day. Any day. Thank you kindly. All the best to all of you, and good luck. There is hope. We should not give up. There's hope.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce.